actors, are they?
No, of course not. They started this war. Here's the whole point. We are living in the world of Hamas's creation right now. This tragedy that's unfolded in Gaza is as a result of what Hamas has done. But it could end tomorrow. Here's the whole point. It could always have ended tomorrow if Hamas acknowledged it would have to leave, give the hostages back, and play no further part in what happens thereafter. That is non-negotiable. That is what this deal says. That is what the Arab world has signed up for now.
We're talking in hypotheticals a little bit until we know if we see the sort of terms, see if the terms are accepted. But the other slightly controversial bit of the deal is President Trump as the sort of Lord Protector of Palestine, and with his right-hand man Tony Blair. Now, call me old-fashioned. Tony Blair doesn't have a great track record in the region. Last time he was, a key player in the Middle East, a lot of people died.
Yes, but here is the sort of advantage of being Tony Blair. You're 20 years on from that, and you've built up relationships across the region. I mean, whatever else you think of Blair, he has built relationships up. He's built relationships up with the Palestinian Authority. And I think his line here is very much to be, I'm going to be the sort of whisperer between the sides. You're scared of Trump, Palestinians, I'll deal with him. You're scared of, of Hamas, the other side, we'll deal with that and get rid of it. And I will guarantee everything because I know you all. So I think he's playing, if you like, the role of honest broker, to use that term.
What do you reckon, Emma? Do you reckon Tony Blair is the man to bring peace to the region?
Look, I mean, neither America nor the UK are honest brokers in this. Of course, the UK for 100 years has been backing the idea of a Jewish majority state in the land of Palestine. Lately, they've gotten a little bit better with the recognition of a Palestinian state, but they've never been honest brokers. And of course, America funds Israel and their genocidal machine to the tune of $4 billion a year and $18 billion since October 7th. And so, and by the way, that's regardless of party. I mean, Joe Biden, this genocide belonged to him, and Donald Trump as well. And Donald Trump, in the first couple of weeks of his administration, was talking about pushing all the people out of Gaza and ethnically cleansing the region for Israel. So we're not talking about people who have the best interest of Palestinians at heart. What we are seeing, though, is a world that is further, rightfully so in my view, isolating Israel and isolating this idea of a Jewish majority state in Palestine and isolating the idea of the ethnic cleansing of Palestine, whether it's in the West Bank or Gaza Strip. Israel's a pariah state now, and that's true politically, it's true socially, it's true everywhere we see, and that's because of the actions of Israel, and people have seen the truth. And so I think what you're seeing now is a realization by America that, look, this has to stop. Even if you only care about the survival of Israel, this has to stop, because the imagery and the image of Israel is going down the tubes, and that's purely their fault. You can say anything you want about October 7th and all, and we know a lot of it. We know a lot of people were killed by Israel on October 7th. We know, look, Hamas doesn't have the weapons to burn cars.
Whoa, come on. You can't.
Well, we already know that. We already know that. Hamas doesn't have the weapons to torch cars.
It's a heavily and highly disputed point that fits your worldview nicely, but it's never been proven. Let's not go there. But just
when I look at a bunch of burnt cars, I know Hamas doesn't have those weapons.
Oh, come on.
Well, we know that for a fact.
They were paragliding in and burning and murdering. You can try and spin it any way you want, but I mean, come on. I'm not going to have that.
No, we know.
Let's stick to the matter in hand. You say there's the people who don't have the best interests of Palestinians at heart. Then why are the Arab states? Why is America offering to pay billions of pounds to redevelop Gaza as part of this 20-point deal? I mean, you're just licking a gift horse in the mouth here, aren't you?
No, I'm not saying that I'm personally against the idea that this deal is a good starting point and should move forward. I'm saying that America has shown for 75 years that it doesn't have the best interest of Palestinians at heart. And we know that. I mean, billions of dollars a year, American politicians are funding Israel, this genocidal machine, over and over again. That doesn't mean that this plan is not a good starting point to see where we go. Look, any plan that the Israelis or the Americans think that is going to include sort of no Palestinian self-rule at the end of it is an illusion. Now they're talking about no Hamas rule and no Palestinian Authority rule. That's kind of ridiculous. Palestinians, of course, have to have.
In the deal, a reformed Palestinian Authority has has a role. It's just the Tony Blair, Trump peace accord, whatever it is a pathway to that. There is a role for the Palestinian Authority. There's just not a role for Hamas. That's welcome.
Well,
right?
from what it says is there's a role, and what they talked about yesterday at the White House is no role for the Palestinian Authority. There will be Palestinians somehow involved in this. Now, it'll probably be through the Palestinian Authority, but we all know that Donald Trump and Tony Blair, if this actually happens like that, and who knows, with Trump things change all the time, you never know. But Tony Blair and Donald Trump are not going to rule Gaza indefinitely. And obviously, Arab states are going to have a major role in this. And Palestinians, at the end of the day, listen, we do not have to prove anything to anyone for our right to self-determination. This should have happened a long time ago, and hopefully this is a little bit a step closer to that. But I also understand Palestinians who view this as a surrender, because there is no terms in this thing about Palestinian self-determination. We have a right unconditionally to self-determination. And those conditions of apartheid, genocide, blockade are what led us to this point to begin with. History didn't start on October 7th, as we keep saying. It was Nat Turner. It was something that we should have seen coming. And so now we're here. Yes, let's stop the fighting, but we shouldn't take any of that as a precursor to Palestinians' right to self-determination. They have an unconditional right to that.
Where is your end game? I'm fascinated by that map behind you on your sitting room wall, your very smart sitting room wall there. That map has Israel. Where's Israel on that map? Has it been, is that a historical map, or is that your fantasy map?
Harry, I'm a one-stater. I believe in a one-state solution in the land of Palestine. I believe in a secular, democratic
and what do you do with the
like
Israelis?
We have in America.
What would you do with the Israelis?
They can stay. What do you mean? Everyone should be able to stay. Jerusalem can be the capital. We'll have the best economy in the world because our natural resource is God. We'll be able to charge people so much money to come there and see whatever they want to see. It's going to be a wonderful state if everybody can drop this idea of a majority state for one group of people. I don't believe that a Palestinian state has to be majority Arab or majority Palestinian for me to have my rights. It's the Zionists who believe that a state has to have a majority Jewish population and put policies in for that effect. We have a name for that. That's called apartheid. That's why we're here where we are. I believe in one equal secular democratic state for everybody. And believe it or not, we Palestinians are from everywhere in this place. And I happen to be from a part of Palestine that currently is in Israel proper, Nazareth. That doesn't mean I'm less Palestinian than someone from the West Bank or Gaza. We're all one people. And I'm interested in equal rights for everybody. We should not be in this position where we are talking about legitimizing apartheid states. South Africa didn't do that. America didn't do that when they got their act together. We have one secular democratic state where everybody has the same rights. I don't know what's wrong with that. The only thing that happens is Israel has to stop being racist.
Yeah, and Hamas need to stop cutting off people's heads and burning babies. But we'll park that one. All right, Dr. Mendoza, what do you think? Two-state solution's dead, and one happy Gazan Riviera with everyone holding hands and singing Kumbaya.
This chap is straight out of central casting for why the Palestinians have never got a state. He's going back over history. He's obsessed with Jewish majority issues. He wants to look to the past every time. You know, there's no interest in the future in this regard. And this is precisely why at every opportunity it was always said the Palestinians never missed an opportunity to miss an opportunity. This is the moment where you can put all that baggage to one side. You can say, all right, we realise we haven't had the best past in this. We realise things have gone wrong. But now we've got the opportunity. Once again, a state is potentially there for the taking. Will we take it? And he's now obsessing about binational solutions, the thing that doesn't work anywhere in the world. Show me a binational state that works like this. Nowhere does it work. So it's a fake, false idea. What will work is this idea of getting the Palestinians back on track, sort of revivifying Gaza, bringing back the West Bank. It's not true the Palestinian Authority won't have a role in this. The issue is quite clear. Reform of the Palestinian Authority, where the president's now in the 20th year of his 4-year term, is a prerequisite for the Palestinian Authority to be part of it. That is what the Arab states have signed up to do and say, we will help you to get to that position. And let's just say, let's help everyone here to get to that position of self-governance, to that place where we can have a state. That's the answer here.
I mean, what do you say to that? You're looking at incremental steps towards everyone's final goal. It might not be the final destination, but Hamas should take this, right? Do you think they will?
Look, I think that we should move forward with this deal as a step, if only to stop the war at now. And look, this doesn't have any final political solutions in it in any case. But I'll say this. Mr. Mendoza maybe has been to Palestine, maybe he hasn't. Right now, the whole of the land operates as one state. Israel controls everything in this piece of land. Israel controls the bandwidth, the water, the electricity, the food, the mobility, the immigration, who gets in and gets out, no matter where. Area A, B, C, Israel, Gaza, West Bank. It is one state now, except for some people have more rights than others, and we have a name for that. It's called apartheid. It's best for us to do away with these ideas. I know this. We Palestinians keep getting lectured about, do you want a state? Do you want peace? We shook hands with Yitzhak Rabin in 1993 on the White House lawn, and 2 years later, the Israelis are the ones that killed their leader for trying to make peace with us, and Benjamin Netanyahu is the one who whipped up those social flames to do that, and now he's been the prime minister for most of the time since then. So we don't need to be lectured on which society is more interested in coexistence and living with each other. We shook hands, they killed their leader. And so we have to go forward and say, look, these ideas, the ideas of majorities and ethnic majorities and apartheid, they don't work. We have to talk about equality. We have to talk about everyone having the same rights. That's what led us to this place. And so if we're willing to have those conversations in America and Europe, why can't we have them in Palestine? It doesn't even seem to make much sense to me. If it's only because people want to keep this system of apartheid in place. We don't need to be lectured on who wants peace. We got together, we decided we would sign Oslo, which wasn't a good deal for us. We didn't kill our leader, they did.
Well, okay. Dr. Mendoza, you're combusting here.
Well, I'm not combusting. Look, it's a view, it's wrong though, because once again, we know that we can get to this point of having a Palestinian state through this process. You're not going to get a binational state. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked anywhere in the world in history. The idea it's going to work in the Middle East is just, for the birds. So we've got a chance here to stop the fighting, stop the war, get to a place where we've actually got some progress here. We should rush to take it because the alternative is far, far worse. And yes, the political contours haven't yet been determined thereafter, but we can get to this point now. Let's go and explore it.
Tom Rogan from the Washington Examiner has miraculously appeared in the studio here.
Early, actually.
Earlier than we expected him, and very welcome. I don't think I've seen you in trousers in many years, but thank you for smartening up to save the West. Tom, give us a bit of the flavour of the politics of all of this. You're a foreign policy expert. Where is this for Trump? Where is this for Netanyahu? Where is this for Hamas, if you can call them politicians? We agree to disagree with that one. Talk us through your take on it.
I think for the President Trump, the central objective, he wants an end to the war, right? And
he wants to know about a peace prize as well, right?
Exactly. And his motive is both the peace prize, but also the relationships with the Sunni Arab monarchies that he prioritizes because of the commercial, the business element predominantly, and because of, I think, the royal treatment that he receives. He wants an end to it. I think he also, is frustrated that it has gone on this long and wants to kind of take more ownership of the issue, perhaps to sort of nudge the parties along. Obviously, the Israelis, I think, want Hamas eliminated. They don't want it to be a viable political military force. Prime Minister Netanyahu has the challenge that some of the far-right members of his coalition government would be pretty obstinate against this deal. So we'll see the devil in the details.
Giving away too much, letting too many people out, and not stringing up enough.
But I think the operative concern here is that and you've seen the Qataris note this already, that the prevarication we're probably going to see with Hamas is that they don't want to outright reject this, but they also don't want to surrender the theological project to turn Israel green, or to purify Israel as they would see it. And so I don't know how this sort of moves the ball to an end game positive state. What I think is positive inherently is that the president is more engaged with it. So even if it doesn't get to that final result, some of the nuances within, perhaps you can see better aid flows, perhaps you can see a better security position, perhaps you see the Qataris putting more pressure on Hamas. It moves the ball.
This gives Netanyahu a bit of an outlet, doesn't it? He's under a remarkable amount of pressure to keep his government alive. As you say, he's getting it from the right, he's getting it in the neck from the hostage families, quite rightly, like, where am I, where are our family, where are the children, where are our brothers, where are the bodies? In sucking it up, essentially, and standing there next to Trump yesterday in the White House, he can say, look, he goes down in yet another Israeli Middle Eastern leader that tried to put peace on the table when it got rejected. This helps him, doesn't it, in shore of his position, because if they do say no, it's not on him anymore.
I think it potentially does, yeah. And I think his objective here would be to continue the military campaign if he could. But there is a frustration on the part of the White House that keeps going, and the civilian suffering that is real. Obviously, it doesn't help that Hamas likes to hide in weapons in schools and, throw people off buildings. But the broader point here is I think Trump is becoming more engaged, and that, I think, has to be a good thing. And let's see what the Qataris do if Hamas rejects this deal or plays games with it.
Amar, are you still there, I think? Final thought from you. I mean, if you were a betting man, are we any closer to peace, or are we going to end up in a situation a little bit like with Alaska and Putin and Ukraine, in that lots of noise, lots of fanfare, one side doesn't come to the table, and the fighting continues? What does your gut say?
Well, first, let's be clear. If President Trump wanted this to end, he could put an end to it tomorrow unconditionally. He could tell the Israelis, you have to stop, and we'll deal with all the political stuff after. He could do that if he wants to. He chooses not to. The real pressure on Netanyahu is not coming because some people on his right think that you might be giving away too much. It's because they want to continue the complete ethnic cleansing of Gaza. They have said as much. Smotrich, Ben-Gvir, they always talk about getting everyone out of Gaza and getting everyone out of the West Bank. That's what all of this is about. And so that's the pressure that Netanyahu's going to get. I wouldn't be surprised if you see in the next day or two, as everyone's discussing this deal, then Netanyahu starts to pull back because the internal, remember, he has to stay in power or else he's going to jail.
There's only one side that have said yes so far. But final thought from all three of you: will Hamas accept the deal? Yes or no? Am I first? Yes or no?
I think that there'll be enough pressure in Palestinian society to accept this deal so that the fighting ends and we figure out everything else later.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Dr. Mendoza, yes or no?
I think no.
No.
Yes, but won't comply.
Yes, but won't comply. Right, well, there we go. After the break, we'll be looking at that speech from that Secretary of War, and we'll be looking at all the fight that's going on in London as well. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Harry Cole Saves the West. Today in Virginia, we saw one of the most remarkable speeches given by a Secretary of War and a president. Pete Hegseth did not hold back. Let's play the clip.
Sorry. This administration has done a great deal from day one to remove the social justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological garbage that had infected our department, to rip out the politics. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that.
He slammed fat generals. He declared the era of unprofessional appearances over. No more beardos. And he told dissenting officers, if the words I'm speaking today are making your heart sink, then you can do the honourable thing and resign. President Trump followed up with, if you don't like it, somebody, I'm going to fire them right on the spot. Now, joining to break all that down is Iraq War veteran, political advisor Christopher Neum. Sorry, I've probably got the name wrong there. And and Washington Examiner's Tom Rogan is still with us. Gentlemen, Christopher, I'm going to come to you first. As a proud beardo, what was going on today?
Well, you know, I've known Pete Hegseth for years.
Yeah.
You know, like him, I served in a war, and I'm also the proud grandson of an Iwo Jima Marine veteran, my grandfather, who served in World War II. And we need to have a tough military that meets physical standards, and that's what they're after. They're after making sure troops can meet physical standards, so that when they're in a life or death situation, we're not losing people's lives because of social justice.
It's not exactly controversial to say that, you know, generals perhaps should be able to pass a bleep test once a quarter or so. The big song and dance, the drama of summoning the generals for the first time in decades to essentially call them woke and fat. Is that helpful? Is that conducive to a happy ship?
Well, you know, if you want to have change, you have to be a little bit of a disciplinarian at times. I mean, you see that with a parent and a child. The military needs to serve its function. I think for many years, many would feel as though, you know, the Obama administration was focused on paying for sex changes for people, and we were distracted from the actual war-fighting capability. And as someone who served in Iraq, many of the women do a great job. However, some of the women struggle with the M249 guns, had to be relieved in Iraq. Had we been ambushed, I probably would have been killed because of that social justice BS that the Secretary was talking about. So I'm proud of my friend. I think he's doing a great job, and we need to have a military that can fight to win, and stop letting these liberal civilians or Senator Sheldon Whitehouse making comments about how the Department of War runs. That's his job, and he's doing it.
I saw some of the commentaries today, remarkably inadvertently sexist and racist, in the fact that Pete Hegseth said he's going to hire on merit Tom Rogan, and everyone said, well, you're clearing out all the black generals and all the females. I was like, well, no. If you're saying you're hiring on merit, you're saying that the people, no, there's not a single black general that doesn't deserve to be there.
No,
he's got a point, right?
And I think that point of merit, extra merit, is the key. And you know, frankly, I disagree with Pete Hegseth's decision to relieve the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, C.Q. Brown, who was a Air Force, essentially Top Gun level instructor. I think was, you know, had some silly comments, but actually very well respected, as is the case with Dan Kane. I think, to Christopher's point, broadly, actually, my grandfather was 6th Marine Division, Okinawa, right, and he's still around, which is very fortunate for you. So, do you want lethality?
Same division,
yes.
5th Marines.
Oh, so he was 6th.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Anyway, we'll talk about that after. But you know, to Christopher's point, right? You know, no one's really complaining about female fighter pilots or some of the intelligence roles. You want people to be in a position that they can do the mission effectively. Yeah. I think the comments were well made about fat generals and admirals, and you know, as Christopher would know better than me, some of the bloated staff that surrounds some of these force guys. It's like the socialist utopia. I mean, it's almost Soviet style. Where I think Pete Hegseth was, you know, the tone I think could have been better was there was a performance element to this. You know, walking around the stage, you know, oscillating in tone. You know, some of the profanity.
How's he rated? In you know, Pentagon people I've spoken to have suggested that he's not actually in the Pentagon that much. He's at the White House most of the time, just signing executive orders and posing pictures with the president. How do you know,
I think the media consensus is, you know, that he's poorly regarded. I actually think when you talk to people, you know, that it's not as clear cut as that. I think, you know, he is not, you know, traditional defense secretary in the vein of some of the predecessors, but you have to retain the president's trust, which perhaps wasn't the case in the first term. And he seems to have a good relationship with Dan Kane. So, yeah.
Look, there's a bit of snobbishness about this. He's a Fox News host, but he's a former veteran, right? You know, he's in charge of a 3 million strong organisation. But do you think he's been unfairly sort of briefed against and tarnished?
Well, it's one of these figures that has high positives, high negatives. I mean, we saw that in the confirmation hearings, which I got up early enough to get into. And, there's a lot of really almost vicious, vitriolic opposition from the Democrats on the Armed Services Committee who lost. He's in there. And the bottom line is he's doing the job. He's served in combat. I heard someone make the comment that I'm sure these generals enjoy getting a lecture from Secretary of Defense Hegseth.
Yeah,
you mean like all the lectures I got when I was a sergeant and I had to listen to all these generals talk about all these things, and then all the times we're going home and then none of it was true. We were there for 6 more months, 9 more months. I mean, generals do a lot of blabbering as well. We also have a term called Pentagon desk colonels. So like Pete, I was actually out there in a hostile fire area, so maybe we have some credibility and someone should listen to us once in a while.
There was one thing I want to pick your brains on that the Secretary said, the Secretary of War, as we should call him, chiselling away, still chiselling away at bits of the Pentagon. But anyway, I wonder if they put them in a cupboard or they're going to bring them back, the defence signs. Or
right.
I think they should burn them, right? This is done. Anyway, we're going down a rabbit hole. The Secretary said we're not in an era of peacetime anymore. That doesn't really chime with the sort of campaign rhetoric of Donald Trump, who said we were going to step back from, America was going to step back from being the world's policeman. The era of forever wars is over. What do you think he meant by that?
I think it's a little bit of strategic messaging in terms of, we know our opponent is Russia and China. We have the defense security document. But also I think they just want to set a tempo of preparedness. And, we are at an era where there are conflicts, geopolitical conflicts. And part of the nuclear strategy, preventing nuclear weapons, is to prevent nuclear war. So, again, it's strategy, but it is the war business. And so, I think we should be less worried about the terminology and looking at our preparedness for some of these scenarios. And physical fitness is the #1 basic aspect of that. And so that's what they're turning to do, and they've gotten a lot done so far in the last few months in terms of defense personnel policy.
Tom, we saw the president, campaign on one platform, but then, bomb very strategically but very effectively Iran. Do you think we're going to see a little bit more of this? The era of peacetime is going to start to be sort of flexible.
I mean, he is inherently unpredictable in that.
Bombing Venezuelan. Well,
exactly.
And there was talk about bombing Venezuela on the ground in the coming weeks. It's America first doesn't necessarily mean America off the pitch.
No, and it's you see the change in tone on Russia. He mentioned in the speech today about deploying ballistic missile submarines to counter the Russians, based on Dmitry Medvedev's threats on social media. But Venezuela, people, note obviously the attacks on the boats. There's a Marine Expeditionary Unit there, 2,200 Marines. There's an Aranger Advance Force, I understand. There are special forces there. There are aircraft coming in. There's a lot of stuff there that you don't need to hit boats, but would be pretty useful to seize an airfield or to do some pretty credible projections inside Venezuela. So watch this space, I think, is a good phrase.
All right, Tom, stay there. Christopher, thank you very much for joining us. Just final thought, how would you have felt if you were still in uniform, sitting there being lectured like that? You'd be all right with it?
I think I'd be okay with it.
You're a tough guy.
I would just be trying to stay awake because you get up so early in the Army.
Even the beardos? Are you a proud beardo?
I'm a beardo now as a veteran. I don't know about when I was in uniform. But thanks for having me, Harry.
No, thanks for coming. Anyway, now look back to old Blighty. Just weeks after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Nigel Farage has accused the PM of exposing him to the same horrific fate by branding him and millions of his supporters racists. Let's have a listen to what Farage said today.
Now, I don't normally worry about abuse being thrown at me. I've got kind of used to it over the course of the last few years. But to accuse countless millions of being racist is a very, very low blow. Why? Well, this language will incite and encourage the radical left. I'm thinking of Antifa and other organisations like that. It directly threatens the safety of our elected officials and our campaigners. And frankly, in the wake of the Charlie Kirk murder, I think this is an absolute disgrace.
Powerful stuff from the leader of Reform there. He was responding to what the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, had said at his party's conference speech earlier in the day. He came out swinging.
I mean, think about it. When was the last time that you heard Nigel Farage say anything positive about Britain's future? He can't. He doesn't like Britain. Doesn't believe in Britain.
Now, Starmer carried on branding Reform's policies immoral and racist, but critics say the Labour leader has been hijacked by his party's hard left flank, drifting away from the voters of Middle England, who he needs the most, and people that are still rather concerned about migration. Now, still with me is Dr. Mendoza. Joining us is RJ Human, the border and security immigration expert from the Heritage Foundation to discuss. Dr. Mendoza, to you first. I mean, we discussed this at some length last night, but it feels to me like the Labour Party are making the same mistakes the Dems made, calling people trash, deplorables, Nazis, fascists, in a time when America is having a debate, about the success of that tactics for the Democrats from Hillary through to Harris. It didn't work. It did not stop Trump. And obviously in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, this discussion about political language and taking down the tone and maybe not calling everyone fascists, not very helpful. And it seems they seem to be taking it and running with it, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I think this tells you the desperation the Labour Party are feeling right now. They've gone front and centre, tried to take out the man, haven't they? Gone straight there.
Yeah.
They're ignoring the issue per se, trying to sort of get round that by saying, well, you're all racist, nothing to see here. So it is a disastrous tactic, though, because it hasn't worked. You're quite right to point out the American context. It didn't work in the US, and people then saw Donald Trump come in and actually solve the illegal migration problem. He came in and solved it. So it doesn't really hold water to be attacking someone like this. And again, to say that Nigel Farage hates Britain, that is a very strong...
powerful charge for a man that's been campaigning on British sovereignty.
Exactly.
For the idea. Just on the America angles, again, watching that clip of Farage there, it did look to me like he's taking lessons from Donald Trump's book. He's speaking directly to the media. He's bypassing the networks. He's releasing his own clips. He's standing there. He comes onto his stages these days with pyrotechnics. He's trying to do these big rallies. It seems that both Labour and Reform are trying to take a leaf out of the US playbook. Do you think that's going to work for either of them?
Well, I think they're looking at success. They've seen how Donald Trump has been able to succeed in his policies and his politics, and they themselves are looking at that and going, you know what, we may as well try this. We've got to speak directly to people. That's one way of doing it.
Dr. Mendoza, stay there. Mr. Howman, are you there? Border security and immigration expert from the Heritage Foundation. Thank you for joining us on Harry Kell Saves the West. Welcome. The politics of immigration, it couldn't be more toxic on both sides of the Atlantic. What are your thoughts on, the deplorable row, so to speak? Is it wise?
Well, I mean,
to brand...
coincidental enough, I actually debated in Oxford on no human is illegal on stolen land in early June. And, what Nigel Farage brings up a good point and everything. We don't want to see another Charlie Kirk. Well, we've already saw enough rape gangs ravage British communities. Isn't that enough? When I brought those up in Oxford, there were jeers. The place went wild. They had to call order. People are ignoring reality. And what Nigel Farage is doing, he's not dividing Britain. Mass migration is dividing Britain. It's without limits that's fractured the communities, caused harm. Again, the rape gangs that are ignored. It's strained public services. And you left a lot of citizens just feeling like strangers in their own land. So when Starmer accuses him of division, it really means that it's just him telling the truth offends the woke and the political class. Protect your nation, protect your people, protect your traditions. That's what it's about. It's not about rallies. It's what Farage is saying, what he stands for. It's patriotism. It gives everything a meaning. He's still speaking for people who believe Great Britain is theirs, not the globalist cabal.
When you were over in Oxford recently, what did you make of the mood? There's a lot of talk now, I'm going to do my favourite rant. They're spraying roundabouts, they're putting up flags, people are marching on the streets. People are fed up with this immigration row. They're fed up with being told to sit down, shut up, pay up, record taxes, open borders. Yep. Do you sense we're seeing a beginning of a sort of mini MAGA wave? I don't know what my hand actions were there, but that's the mini MAGA wave brewing in Britain.
Well, one of the, we only got a little glimpse, to say the least. You've seen how the nation has changed. And I feel like everybody, when you talk to a cab driver or something, they feel you out even before that they speak their honest opinion. But again, this video of our debate, I was with the Deputy Prime Minister of New Zealand and against some very far left folks. One of the things that was interesting is based on the response that our side had gotten, of course, we lost. But when you looked at that final breakdown of what side you walk out, if you're on the side of the House or the opponents, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it was in 90 to 80 something or whatever. We were shocked. We stayed around and talked to people. The amount of students, though, that came up to us after, saying thank you, nodding and everything, you're starting to see something that really mirrors what's happening here in the United States at a lot of colleges, where the youngest crowd makes me look like a squish when it comes to immigration. So it's like, that was encouraging, but the voices that make themselves heard to try to drown you out, they kind of get inflated like their public opinion. They're not. Again, everybody needs to wake up, defend your homeland, defend the rule of law. It's okay. You know, inclusive patriotism is a hollow slogan. I mean, it's not, patriotism isn't about sprinkling your flag, you know, on policies that absolutely like dilute your sovereignty. And simply the fact that somebody's waving it means all is well. Everybody has to act to the national interest, and Farage is, but there doesn't need to be another tragic moment to invoke outrage and a new path for a very proud nation to go down. It's the right thing to do, and it's encouraging to see. And then we're hopeful as well that the Trump administration and Republicans on Capitol Hill, mainly the latter, really wake up and deliver for voters. Tax cuts weren't the top priority. Trump was elected on securing the border and mass deportation. Got to deliver.
You took the words right out of my mouth. On that, on policy, let's step back from the noise. Let's step back from the flag waving and the light of the party conference season. What would you be advising Keir Starmer to do to pull this back? Can he pull it back? Is it too late? You know, it's a very different situation with the Channel compared to the English Channel compared to the US southern border. But these two leaders have been in power for a similar amount of time. One of them has driven migration down to essentially net zero, and one of them is facing record years. What would you personally advise Keir Starmer to do if he has any hope of stopping the boats?
Well, I was almost doing a moratorium of sorts on entry into your country. And what we see over there, too, is just like what happened under Biden as well. I call it like a legal entry under the guise of legality. You're welcoming folks in under the guise of humanitarian concern. Hey, if you're going to take it from a humanitarian angle, worry about your own citizens who are getting raped, and you have a lot of public resources that are being strained. You're ignoring those who call your land home. That's not crazy. They need to absolutely wake up and repivot on the policy front. And hey, you know, start having your police potentially be detailed as a national agent of sorts to be able to deport people, not apologize and go after the wrong ones. Start enforcing the law. Defend your culture. Defend the rule of law. And secure your border. Put your citizens first.
Mr. Hammond, stay there. Stay right there with your passionate pleas. Alan Mendoza's still with me. Tom Rogan's still with me. We are, in fact, a cacophony of Brits in this.
British American.
British American, indeed. As a British American, Tom Rogan, what do you see? What do you look when you look back and see the old country?
Clearly, there is a populist shift towards Farage. I mean, the opinion polls represented it. It's represented in the kind of populist display of flags. You know,
spraying roundabouts.
Sentiment,
I keep trying to explain to Americans what roundabouts are, but
I also think Farage has been.
They don't have many of them.
No, they don't. The roundabouts can be a challenge sometimes. I think Farage has been clever in the sense, though, that he has, you know, obviously put across this sort of hard-hitting version. Okay, we are going to clamp down on immigration. We're going to deal with the sort of post-Brexit EU regulatory restrictions that entailed there. I do also think it's important to remember, though, that when you're dealing with someone like Tommy Robinson, this is not a good guy, right? This is someone who attacks cops, who intimidate. You know, it sounds like it's one of those stupid sort of peripheral comments, but it makes the point that a friend of mine in Cambridge, you know, Muslim small business owner, very patriotic, very proud British, and obviously there are real issues in the English, you know, Pakistani British community, but really good guy. His little sister was harassed by a gang that Tommy Robinson was marching through the city, and so we don't want that. It should be based on the rule of law. And I think Farage's, you know, essential growth in the polls is just pushing that point. The Conservatives failed, rule of law, you know, rule of law.
Dr. Mendoza, I thought what was fascinating in all of this is there's not even a single mention of the Conservative Party, the party, natural party of government, they call it. It is becoming a straight fight between Reform and Labour, and it is becoming a straight fight down on immigration. Do you think Labour have time to turn it around?
Well, let's put it this way. So Nigel Farage has made the music on immigration. The reason the UK strategy has changed in the last year has got nothing to do with Keir Starmer, it's got to do with Nigel Farage. And the reason the Conservatives aren't in the debate is because they have yet to show us anything on this subject, although we're here, it's coming this week. So they need to if they want to get back in the game, they've got to get back and hit hard and quickly and show people why they're different to Nigel Farage. Because otherwise, if you want full fat, you'll go with Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
And Keir Starmer is playing catch-up because he does not understand that you've got to change the whole rules-based system. Now, he's Mr. Rules, remember? He doesn't change the system. So how is he going to solve this? How is he going to get around this when he has to invert the whole legal system, which has been his life, to do that?
Mr. Hammond, you were nodding along there. What got your goat there?
Well, I just think you raised points on Tommy and things like that. But again, to put, the very idea that a sovereign nation must control its borders as putting a face on that at any time, again, I think is just ridiculous. It doesn't matter who says it. It's the idea that must be embraced. Well, we fall into a trap for the other side by making it a popularity contest. Immigration restriction will go long beyond President Trump here. He started it and everything, but kind of a last thought too is, I think, say what you want about Nigel Farage, but real patriotism, both here and across the pond, demands honesty. And, if you're saying that Britain cannot be both a sovereign nation and a transit lounge for the world, give up. I mean, and Starmer's wrapping his surrender of sovereignty, I think, under the language of unity. Farage is speaking to the people who haven't had their voice heard for a while. They still believe your land is theirs. And I don't give a crap of some of the people who are touting that same message. Both sides got fringes, okay? Analyze the idea. Fight for what's right. We're talking values and the rule of law. And I feel like most people are in a good corner with integrity. And we're going to start to see what we saw here. I think the people are going to make their voice heard.
Mr. Hubbard, thank you. Gentlemen, final point in the studio. Labour have come out tonight and said Nigel Farage is being a snowflake. His hurty words, they called him a Nazi, called him a fascist, called everyone racist. But his suggestion that they're putting his life in physical danger is OTT. Dr. Mendoza, your 30-second thought on that. Has Farage overreacted, or is there a point that actually calling everyone racist does raise the temperature?
Well, this is extraordinary. This is under this Labour government, we're seeing people being arrested for stuff like this. So for Labour to suddenly say this is just hurty words, come on. The whole of the British people are worried about free speech and what they can say. This is just hypocrisy from Labour on this score. I think he is right to be worried.
Tom Rogan, 10 seconds, hurty words or snowflakes?
I think that was said perfectly by Alan. Did free speech, for Starmer to, it's total hypocrisy.
Alrighty then. Right, after the break, we will take it down a notch. We're going to do our own de-escalation. Pop culture meets politics. We dig into the firestorm over the NFL's very controversial choice for Super Bowl halftime show. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Harry Cole Saves the West. Now, time for something completely different. Culture war hits the fields. Not Parliament or White House, but the Super Bowl stage. Pop sensation, I'm told, Bad Bunny has been named this year's halftime performer, one of the most watched musical performances in the world. Yet his past activism, including criticism of immigration enforcement, has ignited a fierce backlash from conservative voices who said the NFL's pick is too diversive and politically tone-deaf in this new age. To unpack all of that, we've got Adrienne Gray, pop culture political commentator, and Justin Young, political analyst. Welcome both, Adrienne. Right, start. I'm gonna admit something here. I'm not that into Bad Bunny. What's the problem?
Okay,
who is he and what does he want?
There's a lot of problems here, and it begins with Roger and his cronies. Basically, they're bringing out an artist that is very divisive within American culture right now, okay? Because he's anti-ICE, he's very divisive in that way. Okay, so I first want to just preface this by saying, because a lot of people are like, how did he get here, right? So Jay-Z is actually like the entertainment strategist.
I've heard of Jay-Z.
Yes,
right, okay.
so
I've got an entry.
Yes. And, you know, the NFL has really become this woke propaganda machine for the last few years. I mean, it started with BLM, and then it proceeded to be male cheerleaders.
Yeah, the taking the knee.
Yes. So we've gotten here over time, but it's the woke world to stay. But this is particularly, like, troublesome, I feel like, because, you know, he doesn't do a lot of his songs in English. Maybe there's one song. So I don't know how that's uniting Americans. And he recently stated, you know, I'm not going to tour the U.S., is what he said, because of the ICE raids. Okay, so he's made a lot of statements openly about that. And so when he got this honor, he said, I'm doing this for my people. I predict that this is going to be a huge political move for him, of course. It's going to be super divisive. And what I can't understand is why, you know, we had the domestic terrorism threats on ICE agents and in Dallas, you know, like a week ago. And why the NFL chooses to respond in this way in the #1 American sport.
So I mean, look, President Trump can be divisive when he got cheered and booed when he went to the U.S. Open. He got cheered by a very boozed-up crowd at the Ryder Cup. Controversial crowd last week. Is there a political statement by the NFL, and are they out of touch with the millions of Americans who voted for Donald Trump and B, like watching the Super Bowl?
Absolutely. I mean, in November, he won the popular vote. He won the swing states. He swept it all up, okay? And we've seen Sydney Sweeney for American Eagle. We've seen Cracker Barrel go back to the classic branding. We've seen how that improves their stocks and how everyone is responding. So this would be the opposite of how things have been trending culturally and leaning back to more traditional classic style.
Who would you think would be a more suitable...
Can I crack a joke here?
You can crack a joke at many a time.
They had the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever and get Coldplay, okay? And they could have done kiss cams everywhere, all over the stadium. I mean, how funny would that have been? They also could have chosen artists like Alex Warren, who has just won major, you know, awards, the best new artist, and he has sort of like this like Christian kind of power pops, like, you know, worship music vibe, but it's still like pop music. But there's so many stars that they could have chosen that wouldn't be as divisive. They could just be politically neutral.
Justin Young, nice to see you. Welcome to Harry Cole Saves the West. NFL bosses completely out of touch. Got this one wrong. You know, Jay-Z's been associated with the Democrats before, but is this a political statement or a storm in a teacup?
I don't believe it's a directly political statement in that this is a protest position. Although your guest is right, Bad Bunny has made more active Democratic talking points part of his public persona, including his decision not to tour. The one thing that everybody needs to realize is that Bad Bunny in America is one of the top most listened to artists here. Now,
are you a Bad Bunny fan? What are they called?
I would not consider myself a Bad Bunny fan for this one reason, and this is why I think it's a bad decision. He doesn't sing songs in English, and the vast majority of the Super Bowl audience is an English language audience. Not to say that there's not Spanish language people that are going to enjoy the reggaeton stylings of Benito Bad Bunny, who was in the Happy Gilmore 2 movie. It's not like he has zero profile in America or in English language media in general. But I tend to think that we're probably due. The Super Bowl got a bad rap for having acts that were maybe 20, 30 years past their prime, had 10 songs that everybody knew about. And I feel like we've pushed it a little bit too far the other way. And now we're all gonna, we're looking for the Rolling Stones again. We apologize.
Without getting too high and mighty, are we seeing a sort of cultural realignment in America that is going to, obviously these things are going to be controversial all the time, Justin? Are we, ever since Donald Trump's, re-elected between sort of November and January at the inauguration, we saw corporate America sort of go out of its way to shed DEI initiatives, to rip up all those rainbow crossroads and the like. Is this a sort of, is the NFL sort of misjudging the mood of America, or is it, or are they just sort of, have they just got this one wrong? I can't try to work out whether it's, what's going on?
Corporate America is spineless. They will go wherever they believe the wind is blowing. And so your guess was right. Jay-Z became the guy who booked the halftime show at a point when people thought the halftime show was too stale, and you had the Colin Kaepernick stuff that was around, and so this was their give back to a angry populace that was mad at them, the half of America that was mad at them, that wasn't mad at them for the people kneeling. Jay-Z selecting the halftime show was kind of a gift basket for that. And I think by and large, he's done an okay job. Even as a Kendrick Lamar fan, I thought it was odd that he played most of the songs off an album that came out 2 months ago that I had barely listened all the way through to. So I don't know. I was shocked. The no-brainer here was Taylor Swift. And there was even a joke about that she was setting that up. So I don't know if a deal fell through. Bad Bunny is the rebook, but she's the no-brainer. It's the last thing on her career bucket list that she would have to do. She's about to marry an NFL player. That seemed like the absolute no-brainer.
Adrienne, surely Taylor Swift, there would have been a row about that as well, because obviously she didn't, which she backed Harris, I believe, in a sort of mealy-mouthed late Instagram post. In reality, there's no artist that's going to be able to please anyone in these heightened political times. Are we going to just have this row all the time about everything now? Is the culture wars is the political wars, just seeped into culture now?
Absolutely. In my opinion, I feel like you identify with politics even at an earlier age. We're seeing that with Gen Z and what Charlie Kirk's movement did. So people at an earlier age are getting invested in politics, making it part of their identity. And that's why we see it woven into pop culture, also because President Trump, he's the pop culture president, okay? He's been able to weave in these things from being from the entertainment business like we've never seen before. So I do agree with that. I do believe that.
Yeah, it was remarkable scenes at the Ryder Cup when you have the winning European team, I hasten to add, led by Rory McIlroy. They were literally, sending Instagrams direct to Donald Trump saying, "Are you listening, Mr. President? Can you hear us? Are you watching?" And the president tweeting back, "Yeah, I am watching. Congratulations." Final thought from you both, Adrienne. Are we just through the looking glass now? Is this how we're going to do politics and showbiz, or is there any difference between the two?
I mean, this is going to be controversial, but maybe we flip-flop every other year. If we can't find a balance, I feel like there are some older artists that actually could do it, non-political, but maybe we flip-flop back and forth.
Justin, a final word from you. Is showbiz and politics, at one now?
Just understand that everybody gets one. Bad Bunny's going to play the Super Bowl, but he'll never play the SEC championship halftime show. So that's where Red America is going to get their entertainment.
Well, I just cannot wait for the World Cup where Donald Trump will actually be presenting the trophy. I wonder if he'll be
on stage again.
He'll have his shin pads on by this time. But anyway, listen, thank you both for joining us on Harry Cole Saves the West. That was tonight's episode. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. I'll see you tomorrow.